My grandfather and Menard, there were two friends coming in, well, to Legal. How they got going to find homestead, they had that from a priest, I believe was Legal, like
Father Morin.
Father Morin was his name, and I guess that's how come they started on getting a homestead. And at that time, I don't know how much money was, very little, but it came to the point for them to set up, they needed to build a home to live in. And they came on horseback, they didn't have each on horseback, so they didn't have too much to work with. So they decided to dig a hole in the ground. So which they did, and from what we see now, they dug a hole and then they took the dirt and logs, put it over top, and to make it livable and to have the deep enough that it wouldn't freeze in winter time, and to have a little bit of heat. Now they needed to build two buildings, each a homestead next to one another, on the for the division of the land. So what they did, they dug the caveau and they put half and half on each side.
So we know Mrs. Gelot never lived in that caveau.
No, she didn't.
She never did.
Never.
How did they meet? How did she come to the West, and how did they meet, and how did that happen?
That's quite the deal. She was raised by nuns, the Grey Nuns.
Okay.
And well, I guess through the priest and all that, my grandpa Gelot wanted, after they lived in it for a year or two, I think they had, the two Menard and grandpa lived 3 years in that.
Wow.
Caveau, yeah.
Wow.
And probably they had guests once in a while, people going by and never had any place to stay or whatever. They stayed in that. And so that's how, and then grandpa, Grandpa Gelot, Theodore, he was looking for a wife, spoke to the priest, and then through the nuns, they said, well, gee, we have girls that we're looking after, and they're working for them too at the same time. The way he used to talk to us about it, he said he picked the nicest. And then, so they met, they talked, but then after that he came back, and then he made an appointment to come back to pick her up. But at the time, after he had met her, then he decided, oh, I'm not going to bring her in the caveau. Would they build a log
house for her?
Yeah, that's how it came. Okay. But she never lived in the caveau.
Okay. I've heard that your grandfather was quite strong on hospitality as people arrived. You want to share a little bit of something? Remember any stories of his hospitality? Like he was based, people would come into the area. And
I've heard about it, yeah. But there was people coming in the area, no place to stay for a few days or a week or whatever, and well, where else to go? That was the only building that they had at first, but then afterwards, when he had the log house, well, then there was more acceptable to have people to, and then yes, they did have.
Actually, in interviewing other people and working with the murals, a few people did mention in passing
that they did
the hospitality of your grandfather.
Okay,
back, including the Ukrainians. I
oh, is that right?
that too.
Yeah.
So
well, it could
the
be,
reputation was quite strong. You kicked off Legal Mural Project when you first approached, brand new concept. You were asked, and you said yes. What drove you to saying yes?
To say yes, because, okay, at that time we were talking, they're the first pioneer. Who else, really, to start it? Who else are we going to look for?
So you really
I felt I was in that position that, okay, Rolly, you do it or not,
So you had your grandfather's willingness to take on a new challenge.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was, it meant something to me too, real good. And I was happy about it, that I could be of any service to get something going.
What was your mom's reaction?
My mom, she was for it all the way.
Yeah.
But just financially, she's, you know, she.
No, but
And then I figured, oh, hell, Mom, I can help.
tell me about your work with the Michaud boys. How did you find that experience?
They were real good. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Understandable. But and then really, what did I know about it? So I went along to the decision they make and what paint they'd use and all that, which worked out 100%.
What would have been your fears? Of being involved in? Did you have any fears? You said you just went ahead. I'm going with it.
Oh yeah, no. For fear, no.
Okay.
I mean, vandalism or something with the pictures on the walls? No, because it was done at other places. I think it had started back then, and we've never heard of anything, people damaging it and all that.
Are you surprised the gal managed to come up with 35 murals so far? Does that surprise you?
Oh, I am surprised. Yeah. Yes. At first, I would have, said, gee, if we had 3 or 4, or, but it kept on covering. Yeah.
Okay. How many family members were involved with the Turno mural?
I would say about 40,
Okay.
and it went really well. We were asked to ask the families, and nobody said no. They were all interested, and they wanted more information. So we were quite pleased with that.
Well, that was really the spirit of the murals, getting families involved in a sense of belonging. You know? And I think in that sense, there was that sense of belonging you were able to create. Tell me the essence of the mural.
Well, it was freighting to Athabasca, and they would go to Edmonton.
What year?
From 1903 to 1912.
Okay.
And they left Legal and they went to Edmonton to load up the freight. And then they went by Athabasca Landing Road, which is east of Legal. I would say maybe 3-4 miles east of Legal. And then they had a path there they were going with the horses and the teams of sleigh and the people that were on the sleigh. And sometimes they had hardships. It was cold, and sometimes it was blizzardy, so it wasn't always pleasant to travel. But they managed somehow to get to Athabasca, and there apparently there was a kind of a gas or oil well there, and that gave heat, and they had sand around this oil well, and the horses would like that area, because as soon as the pioneers would take their halters and their zaclage, I don't know how you say that in English, but anyways, take them off the horses, they would go and roll in the sand, and it was nice and warm, so they'd warm up. And
so from that small beginning, 1903, hauling pipeline to Athabasca on to Norman Wells.
Yes.
How big would Caron Transport be today? Because that's where they started. An idea? How many trucks?
How many trucks?
It's huge, isn't it?
They have, yes, a lot of trucks.
They have good parties when together, a little bit just good, healthy family parties at the time?
Oh, yes, they did have, and they had, in 1914, they built a new house, and you remember the square house there that we were living in too? Well, that was a party place because it was big. They had a big living room and kind of a sitting room at the back, so the dance area, they'd put all the furniture on the veranda and have the party inside.
If Normand, and of course Normand, you too, would have values they want to transmit, things are important to them, they want their children and grandchildren to keep, what would be some of those things?
Well, it would be music, because they were very musically inclined. And the instruments too, like some were violin players, some were guitar players, and mouth organ. Norman was a mouth organ. His dad was playing the mouth organ too. And they had fun when they got all together, they had nice nice evenings of dances and singing and.
How about little pranks on each other?
Oh yeah, they had pranks too. They
Yeah.
played pranks on each other. Oh yes. Yeah, they were good for that.